Are back with episode 4 of 7-Figure Habits, and today is all about standards. Now, these are standards that you hold within your business, but I also want you to think about the standards you hold for yourself in your personal life and how that affects you, but also your business. And your business will never rise above the standards that you tolerate. So I'm going to start with a question, and the first question is, what are you currently putting up with? These could be things like a teacher who is always showing up late, a customer who is always also paying late. But I want you to think about, what is that showing your team and your customers if you are always letting standards slip? I find it really interesting because when I speak to the dance performing arts school owners that I'm working with, or they book a call with me, they either seem to be really good at keeping standards for their team, but not for themselves, or the other way around. And you've got to be able to do both. You've got to keep the standards for yourself, but also for your team. And the gap that I see is between what business owners say they expect and what they actually let slide. And that is where your school gets stuck. So one of the things that I always see is that, it was just this one time. It was just this one time his teacher was late. Then it was twice. Then it became every week. Then you felt awkward for bringing it up because you really like them. And this is where that teacher then sees this as the standard, that they can be late, they can not follow the lesson plan because you are setting that standard, because you are not pulling them up on it. So going to communication, is there someone on your team that takes 7 days to reply to a message and you have let that happen for 6 months, so they continue to do that? And the fix is not to be constantly chasing them and then sending another message on day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7. Have you got it? Have you got it? It's defining the expectation to start with. And do you have that in writing? And are you upholding it? So it's non-negotiable. You need to have these things set within your team contract, your team training, that make sure that all the standards that you want are clearly communicated and non-negotiable. And I know that can be difficult when your team are majority self-employed or freelancers, and they think that it's not their full-time job, so therefore they're not going to reply when you would like them to. However, whatever industry you're in, there are expectations for the role, and these are what people need to follow. So again, it's reflecting back onto you. Like, do you have those clearly stated in your contract, so that if something isn't going to plan, or the response time is going over the set time that you have put in the contract, you can have a conversation with your team member. But if you don't have anything in writing, it's very, very hard to then uphold those standards. What we need to always remember is the business you have today is the product of every exception you have made. Ouch! I'm thinking about all the ones that I've done now, but it is true. So if there are things within your business that you're not happy with, can you reflect back and think, was that a standard that I let slide, or a standard that I didn't uphold for myself and let that drop? Should have ironed my t-shirt. Anyway, don't judge. So yeah, you've got to be harsh with yourself. Not harsh, but you've got to be accountable. You've got to be accountable for the standards that you uphold, and then see how that reflects in your business. So with your business growing, and there's going to be more students and more customers, you want the quality to stay the same level, a super, super high level. And the way that you can do this is by making sure that standards are so ingrained into the entire team, so that the customers and the family still get that really high level service. And that is the reason why I'm so passionate about having systems, standards, expectations in place, because as your business grows, it's even more important to have those in place so every single team member is representing the brand in the way that you want it to be. Now you're probably thinking again, oh, here she goes, going on again. How do I do that? I've had a teacher for 25 years, or I've had a customer for 25 years. They never pay on time, or the teacher is always late, and I've let it go, and I've let it go on too long now that I can't bring it back. Yes, you can. And it doesn't need to be announced as a punishment. You just introduce it as a new system. So a new contract, it could be, new terms and conditions that are set out, a new training day, new expectations within a document that people have to read and sign. And then you are reinforcing that the standard is the same for everyone, and that also includes you. What I would advise to do, number one, is to sit down and write down your current standards within your business. Now, it's important for you to get it out first, because you can't enforce that with your team and bring it in if it only exists within your head. So spend some time writing just 3 non-negotiables for each area. I would break that down into 3 areas: your teachers, your operations admin team, and your customer student experience, okay? And 3 non-negotiable standards for each of those areas. Number 2, do a standards audit now. So go through and look at your team, your systems, your timetable, and ask one question for each of them. Am I just accepting this because I think it's easier, or is this actually acceptable? Am I accepting this because I think if I don't, the conversation is going to feel hard? Or if you do genuinely think, no, that is acceptable, tick that off and move on to the next one. Number 3, you can introduce new standards at any natural point that you think, not just in a crisis. And what I mean by that is, I know that I can do this as well, is as soon as something goes wrong, I then want to change everything and tell everyone, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do this. But it's so much better to be proactive and think, what can we change now? This is August. We know that August is always a quieter time for us. So get ahead, get planning. Think about a new training day. Which new standards are you going to want from September your team to start introducing as non-negotiables? If you need to draft a new contract, get that done and start raising the standards for your business right now, not in the middle of the crisis. 4, hold the standard for yourself first, okay? I am a big believer in whatever I say to my team in terms of standards, I uphold those as well. I'm not perfect. I'm sure my team will say there's some really annoying things that I do that they don't like, but you need to make sure that you are holding those first, okay? So if you're late to respond to your team, you're chaotic with admin, you're inconsistent with how you approach things, your team is watching and your team will reflect that, okay? And you cannot ask other people in your team to meet a standard that you are not meeting yourself. Number 5, in this new standards document or the new training that you're doing, make the consequences clear for not meeting those standards before you need it. Similar to not just reacting in the moment with a crisis, let the team know what happens if something isn't met. Guide it from a calm, regulated place rather than when you're feeling maybe sad or frustrated or overwhelmed. And some final questions I want you to write down and complete whenever you can. Number 1, where in your school are you tolerating something you told yourself that you would deal with later? So where in your school are you tolerating something that you've told yourself you'll deal with later? It needs to be dealt with now. 2, what's the standard that you keep lowering and what has that cost been to you? If a new parent visited your school today and watched everything, the teaching, the admin, the communication, would they see the standard you claim to have? And if not, why? What can you do about that? How can you address that? Number 4, which members of your team are meeting your standards every single week without recognition? They're superstars. They need to be shown to your whole team. Yeah, they really, really do. They need to have bonuses. They need to be the ones that you are showing the rest of your team, this is the way it needs to be, and then others will follow. And final one, what one standard, if you held it consistently from today, would change the entirety of your business for the positive, okay? Think about that. So I hope that helped. But again, another one with 7-figure habits is standards. Making sure your standards are obviously super high, which I know they would be, but making sure that they are communicated really, really clearly to your team, and that they are upheld not only by your team, but most importantly, by you, the leader.